Carmelina and Baldomero celebrate their wedding. Don Pablo discovers that Rigoberto has been stealing from him and has him arrested for theft. Alondra and Maria Elisa arrive in the capital and rent rooms in the house of an old couple, Don Alfredo and Dona Rosa. They can't afford it, but Alondra is determined to get a job to pay the rent. Alondra goes around looking for a job, but nobody wants to hire a woman. Some employers even make indecent proposals to her. After looking for a job in vain, Alondra decides to start a business, a flower shop. She convinces Don Alfredo to let her set up the flower shop in the garage of the house. Baldomero returns to San Miguel and Loreto faces his fury. He kicks Loreto out of his house, but Carmelina convinces him otherwise. Raúl returns to San Miguel looking for Maria Elisa and discovers that Maria Elisa fled the town. He blames Loreto for his misfortune, and Loreto begs him to look for Maria Elisa. Alondra opens the flower shop and calls it La Ilusión. She receives her first customer, a cheerful, handsome young man named Carlos who wants to buy flowers for his mother. From then, Carlos comes to buy flowers at the shop every day. He's smitten by Alondra and tries to flirt with her, but she has no interest in him. Alondra's memory still haunts Bruno, and he can't stop thinking about her. It's Bruno's wife, Christina's birthday, and she invites guests over to celebrate, but Bruno doesn't show up as he's forgotten. Bruno gets home and apologizes to Tina, who's in tears. The next day, Bruno decides to get Tina flowers to apologize for forgetting her birthday. He comes across La Ilusión flower shop. He turns to pay the cab driver, and Alondra passes behind him. They barely miss bumping into each other. Maria Elisa serves Bruno, and he requests for the flowers to be delivered to his wife at his house. Alondra gets back to the flower shop and has to deliver the flowers herself as they don't have a delivery boy yet. She takes a taxi to the given direction and arrives at a beautiful family home. Tina comes to open the door. She invites Alondra into the house and offers her a drink. The children get home from school, and Tina introduces them to Alondra. As Alondra gets up to leave, she is stunned to see a picture of Tina and her husband. It's Bruno. Alondra discovers that Tina is Bruno's wife. She is paralyzed with shock. Alondra leaves devastated. She's inconsolable when she gets home. Fast forward, Baldomero and Carmelina become parents to a beautiful boy. Alondra finally agrees to have coffee with Carlos, and soon enough Carlos and Alondra go out to dinner together. Leticia del Bosque dies and leaves Alondra her jewelry and dresses. Don Baldomero and Carmelina visit Alondra and she meets her little brother, Jorge. Carlos meets Alondra's dad and he introduces himself as his son-in-law. Maria Elisa gives birth to a baby girl. Tina surprises Bruno when she informs him that he's going to be a father for the third time. Alondra agrees to be with Carlos and he's over the moon. Carlos presents Alondra to his mother. One day, Carlos goes to the doctor and learns that he won't be able to have children because of a hereditary illness. He decides not to inform Alondra, fearing he would lose her. Librada arrives at the capital, having brought Alondra's inheritance from Leticia, and she stays to become Maria Elisa's child's nanny. Alondra agrees to marry Carlos. A while later, Carlos gets a reservation at a luxurious hotel called El Cotillón to celebrate New Year's Eve with Alondra. Bruno's work associates have also made a reservation at the same hotel. The night of New Year's Eve arrives and Carlos and Alondra and Bruno and Tina make their way to the hotel. Alondra and Carlos arrive at the party and she turns heads as she always does. As they ring in the new year, Carlos and Alondra celebrate a few meters away from Bruno and Cristina. While talking to Ramiro, Bruno sees Alondra from afar. Alondra and Bruno meet again and they embrace. Alondra runs to the balcony and Bruno follows her. They share a passionate kiss. Bruno confesses that he's willing to do anything not to lose her, and Alondra informs him that she's getting married. Bruno refuses to accept that there's another man in Alondra's life. They embrace once more and Alondra runs away, leaving Bruno in tears. Alondra goes to the bathroom and meets Christina. Christina remembers her and wants to introduce Alondra to her husband. Alondra turns her down and leaves. On leaving the bathroom, they find Carlos, and Alondra introduces him to Christina. Christina re-invites Carlos and Alondra to her table, and Carlos agrees to come by later. Later, Carlos and Alondra get back on the dance floor, and they're spotted by Christina, and so they're unable to avoid going to her table. Bruno is stunned to see Alondra. Bruno and Alondra exchange glances, and Carlos notices. Carlos and Alondra sit down at Bruno's table, and as the group chats, Alondra learns that Tina and Bruno are expecting another child. Carlos invites everyone to his wedding with Alondra. Bruno requests Carlos to allow him to dance with Alondra, and Carlos accepts. While dancing, Bruno asks Alondra to run away with him, but Alondra turns him down. On the way home, Carlos learns that Bruno was Alondra's great love. Consequently, Tina and Bruno do not receive an invitation to Alondra and Carlos's wedding. Bruno shows up anyway, hoping that Alondra won't go through with it, but he's disappointed. Carlos and Alondra get married in a beautiful ceremony. Alondra moves in with Carlos, but she starts getting suspicious as it seems that her mother-in-law, Mercedes, is watching her every move. Alondra suspects that Carlos and his mother, Mercedes, are hiding something. Days later, Mercedes tells Carlos that his mentally ill siblings will be coming home from the sanatorium. Carlos is afraid that Alondra will find out about his family's history of madness and that his siblings aren't dead as he told her. So he takes his and Alondra's luggage out of their house and they move in with Don Alfredo and Donna Rosita until their apartment is ready. Alondra finds everything suspicious and goes to talk to Mercedes. Alondra makes her way into the house and is ambushed by Carlos's siblings. Alondra is scared and traumatized. She learns that they are Mercedes's children and faints. Carlos finds out that Alondra has gone to his house and rushes to find her, but it's too late. Alondra confronts Carlos about his deception. Carlos also confesses that he's sterile, and Alondra is devastated. She goes away crying. Carlos drowns in alcohol, believing he has lost Alondra. He drinks for 4 days straight and wakes up to find himself on the street with a bag of jewels next to him. He picks it up and takes it with him. He has no memory of what happened. Carlos and Alondra reunite. Mercedes gives Carlos his father's inheritance and he decides to take Alondra on a trip to Europe. Bruno gets transferred to Spain and must leave without his family because of Tina's high-risk pregnancy. Meanwhile, the police start investigating a robbery at a jewelry shop where people were killed. They start by interviewing the owner, who's still recovering in the hospital. Alondra and Carlos board the ship and, excited for their trip, familiarize themselves with the facilities. Bruno and Ramiro arrive late because of missing their train. They happen to be traveling on the same boat as Alondra and Carlos.